Hey, good evening, and thank you for joining us for the 2020 Skills Workshop webinar series for high school students and their parents and caregivers. My name is Holly Da Silva. I'm the Executive Director of the Biomedical Science Careers Program, and we're so happy you're able to be with us this evening. Tonight's session is the final webinar in our weekly 8-part series for high school students, focusing on the skills needed for success in their academic career. This session will cover information on internships and summer opportunities. The Skills Workshop webinar series was created to address the needs of underrepresented minority and disadvantaged high school students by providing concrete information on the skills needed for success in their academic career. Recordings of all 8 sessions in the series will be available on the HMS Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership, DICP, and Biomedical Science Careers Program, the SCP websites. This program is co-sponsored by the Harvard Medical School Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership and the Biomedical Science Careers Program. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items that I want to let everyone know about. All lines will be muted and the chat function has been disabled. Please communicate via the Q&A tab in your webinar panel and let us know what kind of questions you would like us to address. Each participant attending this evening will receive an email on how to access any supplemental information for the session within 48 hours. And also, please take the poll questions that we'll put up at the very end of the webinar to let us know how we did and how we can improve for next time. Now, it is my pleasure. I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Dr. Lauren Powell. Dr. Powell is Vice President and Head of Time's Up Healthcare. She was also named one of Fortune's top 40 under 40 in healthcare for 2020. Lauren is a BSCP student advisor, former BSCP student and Hope Scholarship recipient, and we are so happy to have her here to moderate the session this evening. I'll turn it over to you, Lauren.
Thanks so much, Holly, and thanks everyone for joining us. I see there's still people tuning in. We're excited to have you. So thank you all for joining us this evening. I'll start by introducing the panelists. So each panelist will discuss internships and opportunities available at their institutions. Our remaining time will then be spent providing general information on identifying and applying for internships and summer opportunities and answering questions that were submitted ahead of time, I think, to our organizers and in the Q&A tab. So we'll be looking for your questions in the Q&A tab and keeping a running list of those throughout the conversation. So please do remember to submit short, clear questions, and we'll do our very best to answer them. Without further ado, we have a really exceptional panel for you today. I will start by introducing each of them just by title, and then we'll circle back around and ask them to talk more about opportunities specific to their workplaces. First, we have Alazar Ayeli. Please let me know if I said that wrong. He is the director of the Community Lab and manager of corporate responsibility and community partnerships at Biogen. Thanks for joining us, Alazar. We have Kristen Brown, who is the lead for U.S. Public Affairs and Patient Advocacy in Dermatology and Respiratory at Sanofi Genzyme. Thanks for joining us, Kristen. Next, we have Jen O'Neill, who is a talent acquisition recruiter at Vertex. Thanks for joining us, Jen. Next, we have Dr. Daryl Murray, who is the director of the Undergraduate Scholarship Program in the Office of Intramural Training and Education at the National Institutes of Health. And last but not least, we have Ms. Cheryl Purnell, who is a senior education and workforce associate with the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center. So with that, I'd like to start with Alazar, if you would tell us a little bit more about yourself, but also about the organization you work for and any internship or summer opportunities available there.
Sure. So I don't know what my audience looks like, but I'm going to assume there's some high school students in here. So to all my high school students, I'm going to say what up, because that's how we speak when we're young and cool. And I am definitely just trying to be young and cool at this time. So with that being said, my name is Alazar, as mentioned, and I have the honor of working in the Biogen Community Lab and really kind of directing our hands-on science component. This past year, however, everyone's lives have just been upside down. And so we kind of responded a little differently. So we did everything virtually like you guys are doing in school right now, but we added a bit of a few twists to it. One of it is that you actually are learning virtual lab experiences. So you're actually being able to manipulate things utilizing these softwares that we've actually partnered with. And then on top of that, you're getting a chance to really have a way to speak to other people in that same field who look like you. I think we focus a lot on underserved populations, and this is something that I really wanted to make sure that we push as an initiative at Biogen. So I've had the glory and the honor of being able to do that. Beyond that, also, one of the really awesome things that I get to do at my job is also work with the SCP and other colleagues in the community just to really make sure that we're creating this partnership that allows all the young people in our area who are interested in science to have an opportunity and have access to these resources that we can potentially have. And so in saying that, what can we do for high school students? You can actually apply to our summer program, and 99% sure if you name drop, you'll probably get in. So I'm just gonna put that out there for you right now.
Well, that's vital information. Thank you very much, Alzar, for that. Kristen, would you tell us a little bit more about you and opportunities that might be available in your workplace?
Sure, happy to. First of all, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight. My name is Kristen Brown, and I work for Sanofi, which is a very large French-based pharmaceutical company. But I specifically work for Sanofi Genzyme, which is the part of Sanofi that's based in Massachusetts. And we're focused on developing medicines for rare diseases, rare blood disorders, oncology, neurology, and immunology. I've been with the company for about 8 years, and I'm currently in the public affairs and patient advocacy space. However, prior to this role, I managed community relations at Sanofi Genzyme for the last 7 years, which included creating and running our high school internship program in Massachusetts. So over the years, I hired over 150 high school interns for roles throughout the company. We've had the summer internship program in place since 2012. We did suspend the program this past summer due to COVID-19. However, we're making plans to bring it back in 2021. I anticipate it will probably be a mix of virtual and in person, or potentially fully virtual, depending on kind of the state of the world. But we're really committed to bringing the program back and being able to host students again. Our particular internship program is in partnership with the Boston Private Industry Council. So we've historically hired only Boston Public School students. Again, I think that's what will happen next year as well, but we're still in the planning process. And unlike some of the other companies on the call, we do not have a community lab at Sanofi. And so all of our positions are office-based, but they're in a large variety of roles throughout the company. So marketing to medical affairs, to quality, IT, sales. So there's a really wide range of roles that are all really tied to STEM and to the healthcare industry. And we work with a lot of groups like BSCP and other kind of local community organizations on other various career exploration opportunities as well. So thanks for having me.
That's perfect. Thanks, Kristen. Jen, would you tell us a little bit more about you and opportunities maybe at Vertex?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. Excited to be here. So my name is Jennifer O'Neill. I've been with Vertex for close to 5 years, supporting our talent acquisition group in a couple different areas. So I've focused on intern and co-op recruitment, our high school program, MBA recruitment, and our temp staffing hiring as well. So our early career programs, we have a few different programs that we have within Vertex. So we hire co-ops, college and high school interns, industrial placements, which is international, MBA summer associates, and PharmD fellows. So our intern recruitment for summer 2021 has already started, as I know most companies are already starting to recruit for next summer. We did have our students this past summer virtually. So the lab-based positions, we were able to transition some of those to a virtual environment. And then we of course have departments that are more office-based, and we're still able to host those students virtually. We do have a summer high school program as well. So for our summer high school program, we partner similar to Kristen and her company with the Boston PIC and public school system, and really work with them to hire our high school students for the summer. For this past summer, we did host them virtually, there's about 40 students that we had this past summer. And then we typically have our previous high school students that now are on to college help out with the high school program and help to mentor them as well. So that's specific to our Boston office. And then we are excited to recently stand up a learning lab within our San Diego research office as well. So that's kicking off this year and we're excited for that. So nice to be here and thank you, everyone.
That's great. Thank you, Jen. Dr. Murray, we would love to know more about you and opportunities at the NIH. I think you're still on mute, Dr. Murray.
Yes, you're right. I was
There you
still
are.
muted. Thanks again for the introduction. And for those who probably participate, or for those who participated in this series over this time, probably are familiar with me. I've participated in the last 3 of these, and in the past several years of BSCP programs. I really enjoy this opportunity. So I'm at the National Institutes of Health and the NIH, and the NIH is the research arm for the United States, for our country. And been in the news a lot, of course, with Dr. Fauci over the past several months with the pandemic. And that's just an indication of the caliber of work that takes place on the NIH campus. We are likely the largest biomedical research institution on the planet. And with that comes a lot of opportunity. But with that, COVID has also affected our programs as well, just as they have everywhere else. Last summer, our programs had to go virtual. This summer, we don't know what that will look like, but I just left a meeting before coming here. We're trying to plan and hopefully be prepared for whatever is going to happen for next summer. However, right now, I must say that that impact includes the fact that we're giving people from last summer first right of refusal for slots that they obtained last summer. So this summer, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be limited, that the number of slots that are going to be available. With that said, we usually bring in 1,500 people over the summer for a program, so there will be some slots. For those who are currently in high school, I have to also admit that most of the high school students who participate here are local high school students, because you have to be a resident, you have to be residing here to be able to participate in the programs. So if you have relatives here who are in the area, that might be an option for you. But there are also other programs I'd like to discuss with you later that include things that you can do while you're in your university and even after you graduate from your universities that can lead you down the path of being a researcher or physician.
That's great. And thank you for those additional details. It's really, really helpful. Last but not least, it's Cheryl. Will you tell us more about yourself and opportunities with the Mass Life Sciences Center?
I'd love to. I've been an associate at Mass Life Science Center for 5 years now. And I joined after getting a degree at Boston College. And the year before that, my son graduated from college. So we had a lot of school going on all at once. And our program is a high school, college, and now we have a data science program. And the programs are online, meaning that you can apply to our Smart Simple database. And they're for college students, high school students that go to high school in Massachusetts. The college program is for college students who attend Massachusetts schools, or they're a Mass resident, and they can attend a school anywhere, but as long as they return for an internship. This year, some of the internships we allowed them to go virtual so that the program could proceed. And this year we have a data science program, which is exciting. And it's the only program that includes PhD candidates. And it is hopefully the companies will hire the interns for 6 months. And we reimburse the companies for the internship. So they're paid internships. Interns can apply at any time That's the college interns. The high school program is only during the summer. And with COVID, things may change in the upcoming year. We're going to be reviewing everything, but we have exciting programs, and we're a quasi-state agency, and that means that we are funded from the state and also from some private funding. And our programs are for the companies in Massachusetts. We want to keep those companies here. And we'd love to see the interns stay here from all the colleges. So that's our program. I'll tell you more about that later.
Oh, that's great. What a wonderful overview from everyone. So what we're going to move into now is more of a general discussion topic portion of our program. So I have identified several general topics that are, I think, of interest to most of those who are tuning in with us. And I've asked different panelists to speak to those. So we're going to sort of we'll go a little bit, no, we'll go in order again because the things are kind of sequential. Sorry, I was going to mix it up and then I was going to confuse myself. So Alizar, we're going to go back to you. And the question that I'd love for you to address, and we'd also love to hear from other panelists, where do you look for summer internships and when do you start looking, especially now, given the context that we're in with COVID, given some of the competition that may exist from last year's interns that, programs shifted and things like that. Where did you look, and where would you advise students to look and when to start looking?
So this is a very interesting question that I get every year from high school students. And I have to say that there was this one gentleman that, a few months back from Harvard, doing his PhD and all that, that's where he is right now, launched me a message and said, I'm trying to come up with an opportunity for young people of color and young people who are just disproportionately underserved and all that in the STEM field. And I'm wondering if you can take a look at this app, is the first question he ever asked me. Now, I don't remember this app, so I apologize for saying that in the first place, but he really came up with this robust app that actually allowed young people to really participate in this particular way of applying for summer programs. And the question of when is now. Now is the time to start looking. What are we in? We're in November. So from now up until about March, a majority of the internship opportunities for college are open. And so to be really competitive, you want to apply early. If you're looking at, a high school programs typically are open in February-ish or mid-February, early March. And that's how our organization has always been. Our college, however, is starting to move a little earlier because we're starting to understand that there's a whole different landscape that we're in right now. And if I think of that name, I'll definitely throw in that name of the app that I was just talking about earlier.
Super helpful. I'd like to open it up in case anyone else would like to respond.
I would just like to add to make sure that you cover your bases at universities in your area. Many of the universities have opportunities for undergraduate students, but also many of them have launched high school programs as well. And if you can get that research experience as a high schooler, really go for it. If you are a senior and you're graduating, treat yourself as an undergraduate as you think about high school. As you think about summer programs for the coming summer for 2021. Although you will not have started yet, think about it in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you. We're going to move to Kristen. Oh, thanks for that, Alizar. The name of that app is STEAM ID, STEAMID. Thanks for that. Kristen, there are lots of questions about how you actually get an internship, as in how can you leverage relationships, or can you leverage relationships to create internship opportunities for yourself? And then also, how might internships be differing during COVID? We've heard a couple of people allude to that already. Would love to hear your perspectives on that, and then we'll open it up to see if other panelists would like to chime in.
Sure. These are two big questions. I think in general, whether you're trying to find an internship, get an internship, or create one that doesn't exist already, it's always super important to leverage relationships that you already have. So some of them might be obvious. It might be your school's career specialist or career counselor, a teacher, a former boss or manager. It can be a friend's parents, friend of the family. Really, if you know kind of what you're looking for, if you're looking to work at a specific company in a specific industry, just think about everyone you know who might have a connection to that company or that industry. I think if you're trying to create your own internship that doesn't already exist, that's going to be more challenging. I think, it's even more important to leverage relationships, but it's going to take a lot of initiative to kind of go out there and kind of pitch yourself to create your own internship. So I think a former manager, especially if you've worked in that field before, is always really helpful. They most likely have colleagues that they can connect you with, or contacts at other companies, and they can also hopefully give you a pretty good recommendation if they've worked with you in the past. But again, I think if you're trying to create an internship that doesn't exist, trying to get some informational interviews, I think is one of the best ways. It kind of gets you in the door. It gets you meeting people and expanding your network. But you're really going to need to go into those informational interviews and really sell yourself, sell your skills, and again, make it clear that you're looking for an internship. And if they don't have an opportunity, maybe they can connect you to someone else. I guess I'll just go right to the next topic, and then anyone else can jump in. But like I mentioned, I mean, COVID-19 really did impact the internship program we had at Sanofi. We weren't able to do it this year, but we are trying to shift it and make sure we can next year. And I know some people on this call were able to make that shift. So I think one unfortunate difference with COVID is that it really might be harder to get an internship. I know some companies hired fewer students. They did less work hours. So instead of a 40-hour week, maybe they did a 20-hour week. I think some companies found it easier to rehire former interns as opposed to hire new ones. So I do think it is more challenging. Hopefully in 2021, people have adjusted more, and hopefully the environment's a little bit better, and that won't be the case. But really, I think the biggest difference is that most internships this year were virtual. And I can't predict the future, but I imagine next year, most of them will be virtual or kind of a hybrid approach, virtual with some in-person work. I know my company is getting really, really flexible. Even when the pandemic's over and we go back, I know a lot of people will be working remotely for part of the week. And so I think that's kind of here to stay, where you might be having a virtual internship as opposed to kind of going into an office or into a site every single day. And I think the biggest challenge of that is when you're new to a team, whether you're an intern or a full-time employee, it can be hard to kind of meet people, build kind of personal connections with your colleagues when you're not in the same place. So I think it does take kind of a lot more initiative to reach out to, if you have a question, you might have to schedule a phone call or a Zoom. So it's definitely a different way of working. And especially when you're an intern and you're not necessarily going to be there for that long, maybe a couple weeks or a couple months, it's just not the same as kind of being in person and getting to meet and kind of build relationships. So I think it does take a lot more self-motivation and initiative. I think most of you know that from having to be in class right now virtually. But I know a couple people on the call have done virtual internships and might have some insight into kind of how those differed from being in person.
That was great. Thank you. I'm going to pause for just 1 second and see if anyone else would like to contribute to some of those topics that Kristen touched on.
So I had like a double kind of complex event that happened this past summer. So we host high school students for a 1-week summer program. And then in addition to that, I also hire 2 college interns to kind of participate. So I was managing 2 college interns on top of managing high school students at about 100 students within a week. So it was it was a little chaotic at first, or the first week is very daunting because you're learning also as a manager how to manage an intern virtually. And then you're also learning how to manage high school students at another level. But I think the perk to that was, the students were very engaging, they were very active, and I think they've already been kind of exposed to the opportunity of virtual engagement at school and the way school was. So I really was very proud of the students for that. And then the interns were, again, just robust. They really knew what they were doing. They were able to just get onto the computers and just figure things out. And we spent about 7 hours a day communicating all day, like on a virtual series, and really engaging STEM education as much as we possibly can. So I would say, like, it really was something that they had to adapt to, but they adapted relatively quickly. So very proud of that.
Really helpful. Thank you. Other thoughts people might like to, Jen, I see you came off mute. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I think what's really important for the summer and just having virtual internships is making sure students feel comfortable with the virtual environment and really kind of taking them through either how to work Teams, how to work Zoom. We're always sensitive to the fact that we are on it all the time, right? So it's natural to us. It comes very easily, but for those that haven't been on Zoom or been on Teams or used Outlook before, that's something that we implemented with not only our high school students, but our college students and above as well, is really just going through more of that basic learning of the technical part during their first week. So they're really set up for success. And then going forward, they feel more comfortable and then to further integrate them into the team. So we initiated that this past summer, and it was really successful. And we got a lot of positive comments from that too.
That's great. And while Jen, while we're speaking with you, I have a couple questions for you too. Sure. We got a question prior to this as we were collecting sort of questions from students around the difference between applying for an internship versus a full-time position. Is there a difference? And again, would love to hear the responses from others on our panel, and what really goes into a good resume and cover letter. As an additional bonus question, I'll ask, bonus round, where does do social media profiles fit into this as you are evaluating who might be best for an internship position? Do you look at social media profiles? Have you ever sort of chosen not to extend an internship offer to someone based on social media presence? And I'm sure others will have something to say about that too. So we'll hear from you first.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I would say first to go for internship versus full-time positions and kind of what goes in to a good resume and just applying in general. So I would say the great part about an internship is it really lets you explore more about your potential career path and really dive deeper into your potential interests, whether it's for the summer or if it's for a longer position while you're in school. So a lot of time when we're looking at resumes for internship, we look at things such as, what you're doing in school, classes that you've taken, extracurricular, volunteer opportunities. So that's a lot of what, myself and the managers look for. Of course, we want to hire someone into a position that's, interested in the department, but we also want to hire someone into a role that's truly interested in Vertex, our mission, our patient-focused mission. So, as much as you can put on there of what you've done in school or what you've done outside of school, I think is really beneficial. And then for full-time positions, that's where kind of it translates a little bit more and you focus more on your experience. So if you've done past internships, really, making sure those, bullets or points under your past internships relate to the role that you're applying to. Sometimes I've seen, those people who have maybe, let's say they've done a undergraduate degree in psychology, but they want to go maybe into more of like a medical affairs space, maybe put in like an objective at the top of your resume. So the person who's looking at it really understands the direction that you're looking to go into. So that's another piece of advice I would give if you're looking to kind of change what you've done before and go into a different space. Cover letters, I think it depends by company, to be honest. I know some recruiters who look at them, some recruiters who don't. I think it doesn't hurt to add one, but I think just making sure your resume has most of the details on it is really the most important. And then when it comes to social media, so The only social media channel that I really look at, honestly, is LinkedIn. I don't typically ever do like a Google search for someone's name. If anything, I just go to LinkedIn and see if they have a LinkedIn profile. So, you know, if you haven't created a LinkedIn, if you don't know what LinkedIn is, I would recommend to look into that. It's a professional network for those to continue to build kind of their own background and network with other individuals. But it's a really powerful technology that, especially now in this time with COVID, when you do meet people, whether it's through a panel like this, for example, or if it's throughout your internship or high school program, to create that type of profile so you do stay connected with people along the way. And it's a great way just to see what's also going on at companies. So for example, you could follow a company or follow an organization that you're interested in and get those type of updates. So that's kind of where I focus on in terms of social media. I never really kind of dive deep into the Google social media. I just kind of stay to LinkedIn personally.
Thanks very much for that. I wonder, Cheryl, if you might like to jump in and say anything else about that or on that topic.
Well, our database has a little over 300 companies looking for internships at any given time. It's a year-round process, and it's a rolling application. And I always tell the students, put your picture on LinkedIn. That's an excellent place for them to get information about companies. And we always tell them we require that they have a cover letter and a resume, and we ask for an eligibility document, which is usually just something that states they're in college, like a picture of their student ID, or if they are a Mass resident attending college in another state, we need something that's, you know, a picture of their driver's license or something with a Mass address on it. And I always tell the students, this is your cover letter is your opportunity to tell everybody how great you are and what you're interested in, because we have, like I said, there's a little over 300 companies looking for an intern at any given time. And this is the way for the students to tell them what they're interested in, what they might like to do. We have a range of companies. There are life science companies. They've got to be a life science company. They're small. A lot of them are startups, and they're across the state of Massachusetts. So I told them, this is your chance to tell everybody how fabulous you really are. And this is the only way this company is going to know who you are. And the companies can do a keyword search by skills. So we always recommend that students put their skills on their cover letter and their resume, because some companies say they only look at one, some look at both. But I know one thing, a lot of times they don't have time to do a lot of in-depth information hunting or searching. So I tell them, this is your chance, put it out there, let them know who you are and what you would like to bring or what you're looking for in an internship. The internships for us are, they're at a range of companies. They're looking for a range of interns. They don't have to be science majors. A lot of the businesses are looking for business majors because they may not have those skills. They may be, you know, might be a chemist and a biologist that decided, hey, let's start a company. And no, we don't know who's going to do payroll, or we don't know who's going to do our social media accounts. Or so sometimes they have interns that will handle those things for them.
Really great information there. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Murray, we're going to shift gears to you and would love to hear about skills and competencies maybe that set summer intern applicants apart, the NIH, which we know is a world-class, globally recognized facility that trains some of the most skilled and highly respected scientists, physicians in the world. So what types of skills and competencies would set a student or a trainee apart to be competitive for an internship or summer opportunity at the NIH?
So thank you, Dr. Powell. As you described NIH, you could probably imagine that you're right. There's high competition for most of the positions that are available, and we're going to receive applicants from all across the country for those positions. First and foremost, I think, especially if you are an undergraduate or even a high school student, pay attention to your grades. Make sure you are trying to achieve the highest GPA possible. That is just one way to distinguish yourself from other applicants. At the same time, there will be a lot of good students, very good students, outstanding students applying for those positions along with you. And with that, you have to make sure you have other ways to separate yourself as well. If you have an opportunity to gain experience, if you're interested in the sciences research, if you have an opportunity to gain prior experience before applying for these positions, I would say really go for it if you have something local. But if you don't, uh, and you are just green at research, I think you have to be able to articulate that in your cover letter, but also articulate your goals as well, where you want to take the research opportunity that you're asking for at the NIH. So there are opportunities for students who have little to no research experience, but I think PIs or principal investigators want to know what are the goals of those students and how they intend to use those tools that they're going to learn while there. That being said, I have to mention that applying to any of the internship programs at the NIH is not an apply, wait for a response type of application. You're going to submit your credentials and cover letter into a database, and then you're going to reach out directly to investigators to garner their interest in you as a potential intern. So you have to look good on paper. You have to be able to arouse the interest of that principal investigator. So I would suggest that they read a paper, read an abstract, know a little bit about what that investigator does, and let that investigator know in your letter how that relates to what you want to do long term.
That's really excellent. Thank you very much for that. If there was a follow-up question to that, I wanted to ask about more of the programs that you offer at the NIH, and how are you shifting in the midst of COVID? You mentioned that the students who weren't able to complete their internships last summer will sort of have first dibs for this summer. But are there still in-person lab opportunities, even in the midst of COVID, understanding all the research, cutting edge research is necessary right now?
So in the midst of COVID, I still have interns reporting to the lab every day. However, they have to work under conditions that are optimally safe. For example, there are local ordinances that may place requirements on the number of people that may be in a given space at once. If that's 50% of normal capacity or 25% of normal capacity, those labs have to abide by those local ordinances. So right now, people are somewhat working in shifts. If you have a lab that's somewhat crowded, everyone can't show up at once. With that, if you have the tools to work in data science, it will allow you to actually be more marketable as a remote intern, because now you have the tools to be able, for example, to perform epidemiological research without ever having to show up. All you need is access to the data and computer. So if you're a computer scientist, or if you are someone interested in genomics or bioinformatics, work on those skills. There are free courses out there actually that you can learn to code, where you can get more information on how to be a data scientist. Now is a good time to explore that. It will make you more marketable.
That's great. Thank you for those insights, Dr. Murray. And just as a note, we're receiving some correspondence that it's a little bit hard to hear you. So if you could just speak up a little bit louder, I'll remind you for the next question, but thank you. Those are great responses. And last but not least, Ms. Cheryl, we would love to, knowing how many interns you've had and placed at the Mass Life Sciences Center, would love your insights on how to leverage a summer internship beyond just the summer. So have you seen interns transition into full-time employees? How does that happen, and how do you maintain sort of the art of relationship building and networking as an intern?
Well, at Mass Life Sciences Center, we usually have funding for 500 college internships per program year. Our program year is a 12-month year. We actually start May 1st and goes through April 30th. And the interns can work one internship per program year. And sometimes that can be, they may start off as a summer intern and the company says, hey, you really have the hang of this research or this project. What are you doing? You know, your break in December, can you come back? Or they may have them come back also in their break in the spring. And sometimes they hire them. And we actually sweeten the pot by saying if the companies hire the intern as a regular full-time employee in that same year that they were an intern, that we will subsidize a bonus intern. So the companies will get 2 interns from a 4-year school, 2 from a community college certificate program. And we've said you can have another intern if you hire one of these. And we've had companies who've actually hired interns after graduation. The intern may have been there as a sophomore and the company felt that they were such a fit with their employees that they actually hired them afterwards. So what I found is soft skills matter. The soft skills really matter. Companies like anybody, companies like people that are easy to go along with, people that will respond, they have a positive attitude, that can make all the difference in the world. Because at first, as an intern, you may not have all the skills, and the company will be able to help walk you through some of the skills that you need, and you have some from your classes. But just being able to put on that positive face when you go in there, and being willing and open to learn new things. Because an internship, especially these small companies, you may be doing something, you may be doing several jobs, and you can build your resume while you're there. That's what's fabulous. You can put those skills down as you're learning them. I tell some of the interns, just keep track of it. Keep track of what you're doing. And companies also love to have interns that are interested in working with them, have great phone etiquette, email etiquette, problem solving, decision making. Those are the types of things that can turn an internship into a full-time position.
That's excellent. I'm going to ask a couple more questions that I think maybe our listeners and our viewers might have in mind. So you're at the point of you've applied for an internship, you receive an offer for an interview. How do you prepare for the interview? What should you prepare to say in the interview? And how do you prepare for it? Would love to hear maybe from Alazar or Kristen or Jennifer.
Sure. I can take a swing at it if that's okay with
Sure.
everyone. I think in preparing for an interview, it's always been about, practicing what you're going to say. Those are very important skill sets to have, especially as a high school or even a college student. I know sometimes it's really easy to say hello to someone and just, have that first initial interaction, but how do you keep that momentum going throughout the interview process? That takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight. And so you really need to make sure that you are able to communicate with these young people, with your potential employer. The other part of it is also attire. I think you really need to dress for the job, right? You need to make sure that you're dressed for the job. You're not going to go in there with, sweats on and your Uggs and whatnot, right? And trying to feel all comfortable, though that does seem like it's the trend now with the pandemic. And I think we were saying this earlier, is that our biggest decision in the morning is sweatpants now. But rather it's about also presenting yourself in a manner that allows you to respect the position you're in. It's not about the person who's interviewing you, but it's also about the position that you're about to put yourself into. So I really think of it in that realm. But the other part of it is, again, practicing what you're going to say, practicing, potential questions that could come up throughout the interview, and then going over what you wrote on your resume. I mean, you've done a lot of great experiences or have had all these experiences, but some of the stuff could be a year old, it can be 2 years old. Refresh yourself on what those lessons have been to really build off of that, to really continue to have that dynamic ability to respond to what your resume says. If you're an avid runner, make sure you keep that hobby in there. But if you haven't ran in a year, get rid of stuff that you haven't done in a while, especially like hobbies like running if you haven't ran in a while.
Coming from the runner. Thank
Exactly.
you for that. Very, very much for that. Kristen, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, and Alazar, I agree with everything you said. The other thing that, I've had a lot of high school interns interview with me, and making sure that you spend some time researching the company that you are applying for. You don't have to be an expert in the company. You don't have to know everything, but the basics, the industry the company's in, what they do, and why you want to work there. Again, you don't have to be an expert, but you should have a couple reasons, a couple bullet points of what the company is, and a couple bullet points about why you want to work there and why you think it might be a good fit. I've had a lot of interviews where the applicant couldn't say anything about the company, and that's not really a great way to start off the interview. It's kind of usually the first question you'll get. So that's one other thing I'll add in.
That's super important. Thank you for that.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
I think, I mean, can I add another layer for you, Kristen? I think it's not just about the company, but also why you want to work there. It's not just about, just applying, but I think also thinking about why do I want to work at this company? What's attracting the two of us together, right? What qualities do I bring as an individual to be working in the company as well is another good thing.
Dr. Marie, please.
Yes, I mean, I'd like to follow up on what Alazar has mentioned in that I think oftentimes we go into interviews thinking that only we're being interviewed when in fact it's a mutual interview. And it draws a little bit about on what Alazar is saying in that you have to know your own attributes and know what you bring and know how you actually match what you're applying for. Um, that being said, also in an intern situation, you're looking more for a good mentoring environment as well. So you want to know what the mentoring environment is that you're entering. Uh, don't be afraid to ask if you can speak with someone who spent some time in that group, in that lab, in that research group, whatever you're going to work in. We often tell candidates that if a potential mentor rejects that idea, that might be a red flag. That there should be an opportunity for you to be able to talk with a peer who is working there. I don't know if that's the environment for every place that someone is applying, but that's definitely something someone can do if they're applying for an internship position at the NIH.
That's great. That's really great advice. I'm going to throw one more, I guess, wild card out there. How does preparing for an interview differ now that they're virtual interviews? A lot of the students are, I'm sure, very familiar with virtual class, right? But how does showing up for class maybe differ from preparing for an interview, especially if your interview is virtual, perhaps your internship is all virtual? How do you stand out in that way? And then how do you prepare for a good interview virtually?
I don't know if that was a question specifically for me.
Sure, we can start with you. Yeah, sure.
But I think you want to be serious about it. I think to some degree we treat this virtual environment as a casual environment. Be prompt, dress the part, be prepared, have questions that you want to ask available to your disposal before the interview. Here's, I think, something that you get to do in a virtual interview that you may not get to do in an actual interview. Have a pad and paper there with you so that you can take notes while you're having your interview, and that if there are questions that are come up during the interview, you'll be able to go right to them post the conversation. Those are some of the tips that I'd like to add for those who are going into the virtual interview environment.
I think that's great. Thank you. Did anyone else want to jump in? Alzar? Sure.
I think another layer there is, if you have pets who can be loud, put them in the other room and lock the door. I think that was a challenge for an intern that I had a few, like this past summer. I was interviewing some, but the dog just kept yapping and yapping, and they could barely really hear each other. So I think really making sure that you set that quiet time, that quiet zone in the home, just to really be able to participate. Now, at the end of the day, I did end up hiring this intern because this person was great, but just really making sure that there's not that many distractions in the area as well. I know that it's the virtual world. You're probably sharing space with a lot of people in the home too, especially if you're a college student. You probably have mom, dad, siblings in the home as well. So those can be potential distractions, but really making sure that you have that quiet opportunity just to be able to interview, participate actively, listening and engaging is very important. So I find that to be very helpful.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to shift us into some of the Q&A. And as a reminder to those who are tuned in, please do give us your questions in the Q&A box. We are looking at them. We are tracking them. I'm going to start to run through a couple of them. I'll put this out there maybe for Ms. Cheryl. What do you look for in an intern's resume? You mentioned that companies can search for keywords, but what are maybe some of the overarching sections that are really important in a resume, and the key attributes and skills you might be looking for in an intern's resume?
A lot of the companies I know were looking for the skills or what they're really looking for with our interns. We do not review the resumes. We do not match up interns with companies. The companies actually go into the database and they can see the intern's application, read their resume and their cover letter, and then they directly contact that intern. But I know the skills are important, not just a list of jobs, because babysitting, even working at Target, Dairy Queen, Brigham's, it has a whole skill set that it brings with it that a company might need or might be looking for. So we always tell the college students to please to work with your career center. And the career center can help pull out those skills out of those positions that you've had in the past that a company might be looking for. They may not be thinking, oh, they worked at Dairy Queen. That doesn't really relate. Well, I think it does. There's a lot of science going on over there. And if you can turn that into, because when somebody's busy and they're just quickly scanning a resume or a cover letter, they may not pull out these things. But if they're just there for them, it's stated exactly what those skills are, they can pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
They can see that.
I think, as I was listening to you talk about Dairy Queen and other jobs, several jobs I also had, a root of skill there is customer service. And customer service skills you need everywhere, from the C-suite to the bench sciences. You need customer service skills. So that's really great advice. I wonder, Jen, if you might like to jump in on maybe some of the things you look for in a resume of a potential competitive intern.
Yeah, I think to build off of Cheryl's point, especially with the skills, and I think, any skill that you have is worth notating. So even if whether it's in high school or college, you took a class on, Microsoft Office, or like you learned Microsoft Office, that's very much a skill that's needed in almost any internship that people do. So putting those type of skills on there, I feel are very important. But really just highlighting also those volunteer extracurricular activities definitely goes a long way. I know here at Vertex, we very much pride ourselves on our culture and what we do outside of the organization as well. And we want to make sure that students feel that same way too. So whether you volunteer for like a Ronald McDonald House, or you volunteer for something specifically over the summer after school, that's really important activities to put on there. And not only shows your community involvement, but also shows your passion for that specific organization.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. I wonder, does anyone else want to chime in on that? Perhaps Dr. Murray, on some of the skills, which I think you've already alluded to that already in the resumes. Okay.
Yeah, I just only want to say, make sure you're thinking about those transferable skills. I mean, someone mentioned working at Dairy Queen. I mean, there are many aspects of having a restaurant job, multitasking, awareness. I mean, but know what those things are. Don't just list them without knowing how they contribute.
That's great. Thank you. This is a really great question that I would like all of our panelists to weigh in on as much as possible. Can you share your own career path so high school students can see how to get to where you are? Well, I think we might need several volumes of this webinar here today to go through all of our career paths, but perhaps each of us can touch on some of the places we've worked and some of the places we've interned before being in the positions that we're in now. So I can share, I worked in a lot of different places. I worked in a grocery store. I was a hostess at several restaurants. I worked in everywhere from Victoria's Secret to Target. And along the way, I also had internships when I was in college. I also had graduate assistantships. I had fellowships when I was in graduate school, and I now work for a top national nonprofit. And so hopefully, as you hear from others on this panel, you know that even if you do start out working at a Dairy Queen, there's no shame in that. There are skills to be garnered there, and there is still a path for you to rise to whatever you want to be and to accomplish whatever you'd like to accomplish. So maybe I could start with Ms. Cheryl. What are some of the other roles that you've had? Because it has not always been this glamorous and this beautiful as to what you see right now. We can all attest to that in our own way.
Well, let's see. Previous to this position, while I was going to school, I was a secretary in the special ed department of a middle school. So I handled the IEPs, the independent learning programs for students, which are legal documents, and the school has got to comply with those, and together with the parents, they make sure these are carried out. So I had there was a lot of compliance there. There was a lot of skills that I didn't know I had that I pulled out. And before that, I was in the high school library, which was fun. Because I read a lot. I was not a librarian. I understood how the library worked, and I utilized libraries a lot and love reading books. So I was in there, and it was not the high school library that I used to visit myself. So it was a very different experience. And my son was going to the school at the time, and when they offered me the job, I said, would you mind if I'm working at your high school? And he goes, where are you going to be? And I said, the library. He goes, oh, fine, I don't go there. And I'm like, that's a whole other discussion. And in the 4 years I was there, he did not visit that library, other than to come in and get a ride home from me. But that's okay. He went on. He's working at a lab himself at this point. So it worked out okay. And before that, I was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years with my son, who had an illness that he would go back and forth to the hospital a lot. So it was hard for me to actually work outside of the home. But while I was there, we used to do lots of things, and I'd take him to the Museum of Science on a regular basis. That was our second home. So I'm not surprised that he went on to go to school in biotechnology. And we would visit a lot of the museums in Boston. I'm not from Boston, so I was taking advantage of everything Boston had to offer. I'm from the Midwest, from Indiana, and actually I'm from South Bend, Indiana, where Notre Dame is. We had one museum that had a lot of dusty arrowheads in it. So I love this, and I love the area, and I love being in Massachusetts with all it has to offer. So I used to drag my poor son around to all the museums, take him to everything that was going on, and just have fun with things. So I did a lot of volunteering when I was there. I would volunteer in his classrooms. We had a nature walk mom. I was the nature walk mom. And they actually would train us to show the kids what to do. This was in grade school, and it's starting in kindergarten. And we would just take a piece of string, tie it, make a circle, get them to put it on the lawn and get them to focus on the fact that what was happening in this little sphere of the lawn. And we went all the way to 5th grade, actually I was a nature walk mom. I learned a lot of science, didn't even realize that's what I was doing, but we passed it on to the kids, and I had a lot of fun with that. I also volunteered. I was in a food co-op, a natural food co-op, and you held different positions, president, vice president, even people that we had a truck that used to go to Whole Food, and they would deliver food to a church in our community. And sometimes you just unloaded that truck, or you watched the kids of the people who were unloading the truck and doing other things. So I did a lot of volunteer in the community and had a good
That's
time.
wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Ms. Cheryl. That's great. Jen, Kristen, Alazar, anyone else want to chime in on some of the a brief overview to Nina's question about our own career paths and other places we may have worked or interned?
Sure, I'm happy to go. So I would say probably the biggest role that helped to kind of grow my own self as a professional is when I honestly worked in like a retail space. Just being around that type of customer service. I worked in retail and was a manager for about 5 years, partially while I was in college and then for a couple of years post-college. And I think that just really helps to build you as an individual and future professional. And you really understand, that there are different types of, personalities and different types of people that you interact with. And it's kind of how you manage and talk to people. And then I also had the opportunity to, in that space, manage about 30 different employees that were kind of between like the high school and college phase, which was also interesting. That was my first time being a manager. So I really kind of understood not only how to manage a population of that age, but also just how to be a manager and how to act in different situations. So I really felt earlier on in my career is really what helped me in the long run, but also shaped like really what direction I wanted to go in, and being customer focused. Of course, not in a retail space right now, but working within HR, I'm constantly interacting with individuals every day, and I feel like those skills prior really helped to shape me and to learn and grow in that space.
That's awesome. Thank you. Kristen?
I'm happy to share. I would say I didn't have any internships in high school, but in college, I went to Northeastern University, which is a co-op, had a co-op program. So throughout college, 6 months of the year, I'd be in class, 6 months I'd be on co-op working full time. And that really helped me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. If you're in high school thinking about internships, you're kind of already ahead of the game, but I was able to do a couple of different co-ops or internships and kind of test out different jobs. And that really kind of led me into what I did for the last 10 years, which was community relations. And that kind of came directly from an internship I had while in college. I would say more recently, so after kind of 10 years in community relations, I actually did what my company calls a preceptorship, which is like an internal internship. So internships might not necessarily end once you have a full-time job. I basically did my job, and then I also had kind of an internal internship at my own company where I kind of tested out a job in a different department, and then ended up moving into that department full-time. So they can be a really great way to get experience, and also kind of just figure out what you like, what you don't like, and you can kind of make career changes throughout your career. So those are kind of my two experiences with internships.
Thank you. Alazar, Dr. Murray.
Alazar.
Oh, so you give me the platform? Okay. I've had a very interesting career, I think. So I grew up in Ethiopia. So I came here when I was just about 7 years old, and I think I've had the joy of really being curious my whole life. And I love sharing the story of how when I was about 6 years old, so this is before coming to the US, my father gave my mom a watch. And it was this beautiful, spectacular, like, fake gold, but it was, it was golden and it was shiny. I was 6. I loved it. I loved seeing it. I loved watching it. And, when I was a little kid, I used to walk over to it and put it to my ear and just listen to it tick. And that was just a very big thing that I really enjoyed watching this watch do, or this little tiny wristwatch do. But one day, when mom wasn't around, she left the watch on a countertop. I picked it up, took it to the yard, and just smashed it into pieces because I needed to know what made it tick. So curiosity is there. So as a little kid, that curiosity was always there to figure out why things work the way they do. So this led to, being 16 years old and having applied to, the CURE program over at Dana-Farber, and then participating in that as just a 16-year-old kid working in a laboratory, really trying to understand a lot of opportunities in science, because that's not where I come from, right? So science wasn't always a thing. I just have always had the curious mentality for it. But that really kind of catapulted my career into where I am today. So I've held weird positions as well. So it wasn't just right off the bat I went into science at 16 and still am in science now. It's more of after high school I went into college. So kudos to the Husky on the call. So I went to Northeastern as well. So it was really wonderful just to have that exposure of co-ops and then working in laboratories. But after that, you had to find a real job, and I couldn't find a real job. So it took me a while to get there. So me and my friends just started a construction thing. So we started, repairing homes, and we started fixing toilets, and that's how we survived that year. And then going from that to, getting that call from Biogen at the age of 24 was, it was a miraculous and kind of marvelous opportunity to come and do science outreach. And so this is what I do now, and I just do it at a higher level now after 6 years. And then beyond that, I think it's also looking for more. I think I get to have the opportunity to say, or I get to actually just tell you guys right now that I'm looking to do my PhD in neuroscience. And so working through that, working on my full-time job. I actually have an exam tomorrow, so preparing for that has been very joyous, because it's not just about looking at where I am now, but it's also thinking about my future. So don't always
Mhm.
look back and say, my career wasn't good, or my career is, I don't know where I'm headed. No, you never need to know where you're headed. As long as you're just in it at that moment, embrace that moment, smile through it, apply to the next position that you potentially can get, and keep going. Because you never know where you're going to go.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. Murray?
That is great, Alizar. I mean,
That's really
I'm
great.
listening to your story and have to preface what I would like to say with, you have to be very open minded about where life will take you and what your accomplishments can be. Not what they are in the moment, but what they can be. All of you who are working in restaurants and thinking what my future is going to be, I started out working at Burger King. Putting burgers on the grill at Burger King. But even in that arena, um, received somewhat of a promotion. Moved up to do other things, to later work at a Red Lobster. That's big timing. But that gave me an opportunity to know what it was like to lead, because I was a kitchen manager at the Red Lobster. So even at a very young age, I'm in high school, and I'm able to, understand what leadership is about and why it's important. In college, I was just curious, and before then, just curious, not knowing that I was going to end up being a scientist. In fact, I was more interested in economics and football than anything else. But internships, like many of the ones that are being presented here to you, I must say, have shaped my career trajectory in the sense that I, in college, found out about a program that was focused on minority students in the sciences, took advantage of that, and networking, of course, again, being really important. My mentor there had a network with someone at the NIH. I came to the NIH for what was supposed to be a summer internship. It's 34 years later. I've worked my way through the ranks here. I came here for a summer internship, was turned into a post-baccalaureate internship, which morphed into a PhD program at the NIH, Graduate Partnerships Program. Was able to get my PhD at Johns Hopkins. Came back to the NIH to do a postdoc. worked in the lab as a research fellow for years after that, and from that went into science administration. So Burger King can take you places. Just hang in there and, you know, really be optimistic about what could be next.
That's great. Maybe that should be our tagline for this, although we're not giving shout outs and kudos to Burger King, but that is awesome. And I hope that the students who are tuning in, I really hope you're hearing that it's not where you start, it's where you end, right? And we have all started in lots of different places. So hopefully that answered, I think, Nina's question, and gives you some additional context about us as panelists. I'm going to get a little closer back to our topic a little bit. Can you all talk to me about where do you post your internships? So where can people find the postings about internship opportunities and summer opportunities for each of your respective organizations? Let's maybe start with Kristen.
Sure. So our program is just for Boston Public School students, and we work closely with the Boston Private Industry Council. So any student that's a BPS student can go to their school's career specialist to access any of the job postings.
Great. Jen?
Yes, so I actually have the exact same answer as Kristen. We also work with the Boston PIC, so working with your school career counselor can direct you to the application process.
That's great. Ms. Cheryl?
Okay, I posted in the chat, I posted the links for our programs. We have a website, and for the college programs, we used to attend the college career fairs. Now I do information sessions at some of the schools, and Handshake is a big platform for colleges to post their jobs and events also. Some of the schools have other posting platforms, and that's about it. We've gone to the career fairs we've linked up with several of the career centers at the colleges across the state. We only do these colleges across the state. Oh, something new, I forgot. We also, there was the UNCF had a virtual, I guess it was a virtual conference here in Massachusetts, even though it sounds a little strange. And they had comments from the governor, lieutenant governor, our acting CEO. And we are now allowing the HBCU students to be part of the program. This was something that just occurred last week. So this was a new thing. So we're now going to be, we're trying to get minority students to come to Massachusetts to be part of our life sciences ecosystem across the state. So we are allowing them to be part of the internship program.
Oh, that's really great. Thank you. And for context there, HBCU stands for Historically Black College or University. And those are the universities across the country that are majority minority serving institutions serving African-American students. That's really great. Thank you. Dr. Murray, Alizar?
Shout out to HBCUs. I attended Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama.
Shout out to HBCUs. I attended Xavier University. So yes.
Yes. That said, I think the question was more about where to find internships, right? So one of the easy ways to do it is www.training.nih.gov. That will take you to all of the internship programs that are presented out of the Office of Intramural Training and Education at the NIH. And you can follow me on LinkedIn because I don't post a lot, but I always post when all the applications open up for all the internship programs. So you can do one of those two things to get information about the programs and when those applications go online.
That's great. Thank you.
So ours is very similar. So ours is Biogen Community Lab. So that's focused mainly on just high school students. So if you're interested and you're in high school, the Biogen Community Lab website is available. So just Google that in. It's also in the link that's provided for you. So just feel free to do that. Our applications don't open up until February. So you have until February. The moment it goes live though, as Dr. Murray said, I posted on my LinkedIn. You guys can definitely follow me on LinkedIn as well and just be able to just click apply. It takes you to this very quick application process, and you write a very short excerpt on why you want to be a part of the program. We don't require to see your GPA or anything like that. We're just trying to spark an interest in STEM education for you as a high school student. Our university opportunities and our university internship programs, which last all summer. So typically from June to August, or our co-op programs, which last from January to July, and from July to December, are also a part of our university relations platform. So that's found in that internship link that I also sent as well, that Holly was able to disseminate as well under the Biogen one. But you guys can also email universityrelations@biogen.com. Again, that's universityrelations@biogen.com for anything related to university relations. And for Community Lab, just email communitylab@biogen.com if you have questions for that.
Thanks for that. So I'm going to do kind of a rapid fire of some of the other questions I see here in our Q&A box. A question about virtual skills that you could cultivate now during the pandemic that could help propel one into an internship now or perhaps next year. A question about international students. Are there internships for international students in any of your organizations? How long internships usually last, although we could say that that really varies, but most of the time over the summer, usually over the summer months, but there are fall and spring internships as well that usually align with the calendar. So, and then ways that high school students can stand out as being competitive for internships. So that will be sort of our rapid fire kind of for the next few minutes. I'll start maybe with whoever wants to start. Maybe Jen, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I'm happy to answer the one about international students. So we do hire international students at Vertex for our programs. Typically it's for our intern co-op programs, but we've also hired them for like our PharmD or MBA program. So typically you just need to have work authorization within the US for that period of time. So we typically have students that work with their school and go on a CPT for that duration. And we work with you on that paperwork to be able to provide you those details, but we definitely are able to hire international students throughout our programs.
That's great. We can stick right there for a second. Does anyone else take international students for your internship programs?
Yes, we do welcome international students to apply to our Smart Simple database, and it's up to the company if they would like to hire them, but we welcome them to apply. So we would love to have international students.
Great. Questions about high school students standing out. What types of things can high school students, or what types of skills can high school students highlight to stand out as competitive for internships?
Although again, most of the internships at the NIH are going to be for local students, I can expand a little bit on what we look for. Of course, we want students with good grades. That's kind of the basis of the selection process. But we also want students who show an interest. Sometimes students might think that working at a place is the only way to gain experience. We take a look at who decides to volunteer, who will put themselves out there to get experience, even if they're not being paid for it. That matters a lot. And it also shows that you can be a rounded person and not just have good grades.
That's excellent.
You know, Dr. Murray, I got to piggyback right off of that because in college, when I first started my first internship, it was all about prostate cancer and the research behind prostate cancer, and it was really interesting how I just said, I'm going to volunteer. I don't want to get paid. I just want to learn. So I did that. But the PI, like surprisingly, went and got an NIH grant just specifically tailored for me to participate in his lab. And then he just started paying me throughout the entire rest of like my entire experience in college. So sometimes it's all about just putting yourself out there, making that, that commute, that travel, learning, willing to learn and understand things, and also asking that right question during lab meetings, because eventually it leads to something. And so I grunted for about, I don't know, I think it must have been a month and a half or so, just just working through the weekends, just wanting to learn and wanting to get exposure to it, taking on those responsibilities, and it ended up being something very fruitful at the end. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Thanks for the input, both of you. And then about virtual skills to cultivate now during the pandemic that could possibly help make one maybe more competitive for an internship. Sort of also connected to this, do you have to have experience to apply for any of these internships? Perhaps we could go to Kristen.
Sure. So at least at Sanofi for high school internships, you do not need to have any experience. And we actually don't look at GPA either. So one thing I would say is don't be kind of discouraged or don't not apply for a role because you think you don't have enough experience or you think your GPA is too low, because that might not be the case. And you're not going to get the job if you don't apply. So I would just say people have already given some great advice about what to put on your resume and how to put transferable skills from maybe unrelated jobs. So I think all of that is really good advice. I have already, the other question was around virtual skills. I learned Zoom, get used to Zoom and I'm sure everyone's been using it for the last 8 months. That's kind of what we use. That's what most of my friends and colleagues use on a day-to-day basis. Honestly, I haven't found work to be that much different remotely. Everything's still email, Outlook. A lot of high school students don't know or haven't used Outlook before, and a lot of companies use that. So if you can get any experience with that, that's just a little bit of a leg up. But again, all of these things usually you're kind of not expected to know, and you're kind of taught in the beginning of your internship.
And I'll add another thing too. I think carving out time is so important for when you're working virtually. I think one of the things that I found earlier on in my virtual days was literally I was carving out a lot of time for meetings, but I wasn't carving out enough time to just kind of say, wait, I need to take a deep breath here. So if you're a high school student or you're a college student really looking to apply for an internship and you're really thinking about this virtual opportunity, it's really important to say, okay, I need to have time to actually kind of digest what I've just actually been a part of and put that in your calendar. Say that this is actually my digestive 30 minutes to be able to digest and execute on that plan, really being able to kind of meticulously think through that. Because when you're in the office, it's different. All your colleagues are working and you're just kind of going through the motions of that. But in the virtual world, you'll get sidetracked from I have to make lunch and then I have to go make dinner, and then you're moving from one location to another, and then you're potentially distracted from things. So as a high school and as a college student, just think about making sure that you take some time to digest that information and then being able to then execute and plan that particular way.
Excellent. One more rapid fire question for you all. Do your internships pay? A very, very important question for a lot of students from lots of different socioeconomic statuses and backgrounds. So maybe Cheryl, we could start with you.
Yes, all our internships are paid internships, and the college students, what happens is the company will hire the intern, they will pay the intern, then we will reimburse the company for that internship. So we reimburse up to a max for the college students up to $17 an hour, up to a max of $8,160 per internship. And for our high school students, it's $13 an hour. That there's no max. The companies have to pay them $13 an hour to participate in our program, and the up to a max of $3,120. Our data science program, we actually tier that based on the degree that the intern last earned. For undergrads who've earned their BS or their BA, it's $20 an hour max, up to 20,800. Masters, these are for students who have received their masters, or if they've gone from the BS to getting a PhD to being a PhD candidate. It's $25 an hour max. And for PhD candidates, it's, or excuse me, those who have obtained their PhD, it's $40 an hour max for those students. So yes, we like I said, we will reimburse the company, but the company is to pay the intern ongoing. They're an hourly rate, so they have to pay per the Massachusetts law for hourly employees.
Great, thank you. Jen, Alazar?
Yeah, we do pay for our internships as well. So between high school intern co-op, PharmD, MBA, so all of them are paid internships. And then when we are typically on site, we also have a commuter stipend too. So depending on if you commute for public transportation, just knowing, you know, a lot of companies who are in Boston, it's expensive to commute. So we provide that as additional benefit as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for our internship here in Cambridge, so it's very similar. So for our college internships, yes, we pay for that. We also do a stipend, travel stipend, etc. So that's for all of our college, graduate, MBA programs, PharmD programs, and fellowships. So very similar to what Jen just said. For our high school students, however, we do not. We do supply the laptops that request laptops, and those students who typically want to have Wi-Fi and, you know, the extra boost. So we do also supply those for students who are typically looking for those, because again, it's just a 1 week kind of submergent program.
Great. Dr. Murray?
And yes, all NIH internships are paid internships. I must add though that the majority, all of the internships are only for citizens and permanent residents because public monies are used to fund them.
Thank you. And Kristen?
Yep, high school, college, et cetera, internships are all paid, and we also do a commuter stipend for the high school students.
Excellent. With our last 4 minutes, I'm going to ask each panelist to give me one word, literally one word, of advice for our listeners as they prepare to think about internships and summer opportunities. So I will start with Dr. Murray.
Optimism.
Be optimistic.
Be optimistic. Where there's hope, there's life.
Thank you very much. Alazar?
I was thinking. So I would say be a learner. Be willing to learn. Like, I think it's really hard not to want to learn, but I think it's so important to be a learner throughout this entire phase as an intern.
Excellent. Jen?
I would say to network. Make sure you network with anyone that you come in contact with, and whether it's LinkedIn or just following up. I think it's really important in today's society.
Great. Cheryl?
Be positive.
Great. Thank you. Kristen?
I'll say motivation. I think you can get out of your internship what you put into it, and the more motivated and the more initiative you take, that the better experience for you.
And mine will be prepare. So prepare yourself well and sit back and watch the opportunities come to you, because they will. With that, I want to have a few announcements and thank yous. One, I'm going to ask that attendees go to the poll once it's launched and answer the poll questions. It's really important that we're able to hear back from you. This is kind of the first time I think BOCP is doing this. So please do give us your feedback via the polls, which I think were just launched. A reminder that the recorded webinar will be posted on BOCP and the DICP websites, so you will be able to watch these again. Each participant will receive an email on how to access supplemental information within 48 hours. So many of the websites and programs we referenced here will be sent to you in an email for your own reference. For high school juniors and seniors and up, applications are now available for BSCP's biennial student conference taking place virtually April 9th and 10th, 2021. We do encourage you to apply. More information can be found on the BSCP website or by emailing Holly DeSilva. For any college and community college students or postbacks joining us tonight, we've done or who have done or are doing research, we encourage you to submit an abstract for the 2021 virtual New England Science Symposium, which will take place on April 23rd and 24th, 2021. Abstracts can be submitted at www.newenglandsciencesymposium.org. That will also be included in follow-up email correspondence, I'm sure. Let me finish off with several thank yous. A special thanks to today's speakers, to Mr. Alazar, to Ms. Kristen, to Ms. Jen, to Dr. Murray, and to Ms. Cheryl. Thank you all. Thank you to all the participants for joining us. A special thank you to Dr. Joan Reed for her vision creating BSCP, and to the BSCP staff. And finally, thank you all again for joining us for the culmination of our 8-week Skills Workshops webinar series. We hope you found it to be helpful. Most importantly, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Please stay safe and have a great night.